Hi guys, welcome back to my life story and my pregnancy and now my after pregnancy and updates on baby and me. Um, Today is July 18th and we are 2 weeks and 2 days after baby. Um, so I am going to kind of discuss like my labor and all that kind of stuff, but it was kind of complicated in a way, but not really. So I will get on with the story. So we went in on June 30th at 9 p.m. and we were going to do like tablets that dissolved and softened your cervix. And then once the cervix was opened at least a little bit, we were going to start the Pitocin through the IV. Well, they monitored him for a while, but his heart rate was kind of crazy and they couldn't find his baseline. So, uh, they just monitored him for a little bit and then they came back after a while and they decided that they weren't going to do the tablets because they dissolved and they couldn't reverse it if something happened to him or if he started getting too stressed. So they tried the Cervidil, which is on like a paper string. It's kind of like how I want to explain it. What it looked like. Um, that went in. It was supposed to stay in for 12 hours, and that basically did the same thing. Soften your cervix. The only thing with this is they could pull it out if his heart rate started going crazy again. And so they put it in, monitored him. They came back an hour and a half later to pull it out because his heart was already going funky, and so that was that. And they had to um, they gave me a shot like in my upper arm, like in the back fatty part, to stop the contractions, to give him like some break time. So they pulled that out, and then we waited a little bit, and then they then decided they were going to try the tablets now. So they tried the tablets, didn't work. So he started getting stressed out, so they had to give me another shot in the back of my arm to stop contractions. Um, then they waited a while, and then they decided that they were going to do like a balloon catheter thing, and that went one part went like in your cervix, and by this time I was only 1 centimeter dilated, so very, very like barely. And so one part went in the cervix, which I didn't want to explain that part because it did not feel too great. Um, so they put that part in and they blew it up with like just salt water, I think they said, or I don't know. And then the other part got filled up. And they're just like a little ball. Got filled up outside the cervix. And what they did was squish the cervix together to like soften it and open it. And then every 15 minutes they came in and they tugged it. Also was not a great part. Um, a little after they started the balloon catheter, they started the IV Pitocin. And the contractions were fine. Um, and then they ended up upping my Pitocin, and it ended up being too much because my contractions were so close together then that I wasn't dilated enough for the contractions to be that fast. So they lowered the Pitocin that went in, and they gave me another shot to kind of like slow that down. So I've got like 3 shots total to stop contractions. And then they gave me like a ball thing to like sit on, bounce up, and just to try to make it easier and not hurt as much. But to be honest, there's no eliminating the pain. I didn't last too long on the ball. I would get a contraction and I would want to stand up, but then I would want to sit down, but I wouldn't lay down. Nothing was comfortable. Nothing. Then I basically like laid in bed, and they were pumping fluids through me because they thought it would help with his heart rate because they couldn't find his baseline. So they kept pumping and pumping fluids and fluids and fluids. Well, I would have to go to the bathroom. And every time I would get up to go to the bathroom, it would feel great to get up and walk, but then I would get a contraction and it would feel like the worst thing ever. And it was like, just get me into bed and let me deal with it. I would literally like, I don't know how to explain it, but I would get a contraction and I would be like, I was like halfway sitting up in bed, like just slanted, and I had my head like resting on the bar in my blanket, and I would just bury my head and just rock my legs, like, because I had like my legs up. Well, my feet were on the bed, but my knees were like up, if that makes sense. And I would just rock my legs back and forth and back and forth, and I would do that the whole contraction, every contraction. And then I was in a lot of pain, and well, before that, well, no, I was in a lot of pain, and the nurse comes in and she tugged on the catheter thing, and it didn't really do anything else, but she left. She came back and she said that you're an elective induction, so it's up to you if you want to leave and come back when things progress further, and you can progress further at home. She's like, the only way that we'll keep you is if we take this out and you're already 4 centimeters dilated, because 4 centimeters is considered like full labor. And so she left, and I was like, I'm not gonna come back. I was like, I'm already here, I'm already doing it, let's just do it and get it done. So then she comes back in like 10 minutes later, and she pulls the catheter out, and she was like, well, she's like, there's no turning back now, because now I was 4 centimeters dilated. So she leaves, and I couldn't get any pain medication yet, and I was just dying, and I wanted to try to do everything without anything, and that wasn't going to happen. So then, she comes back in like 20 minutes later, and I asked if I could get anything for pain yet, and she was like, you seem awfully comfortable to be any further than 4 centimeters. And then she was like, if you want, I can check you, or I can wait. And I just had her check me just because then maybe I could get pain medication. So she checks me, and I was 6 centimeters dilated. So she then offered me, would you like your epidural? And I said yes. So she had a call for the anesthesiologist because he was just on call. And I want to say this is about like, I don't know, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I'm really not sure. So they call, and then the surgeon technician person came in, was setting up for the epidural guy, and I was just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, and I was like, whoa, my water broke. And I was like, my water just broke. And they all heard like a kick on the monitor. So like he must have kicked and then the water must have came out. And it just kept coming. It wouldn't stop. And people kept saying, oh, it's only like a fourth cup of water. No, it was like gallon upon a gallon of water. That's what it felt like. It just kept gushing out. And it felt weird. And then the anesthesiologist came, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and he gives you like 2 or 3 like numbing shots, and then the epidural shot with the epidural catheter. And the whole time I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, it's just dripping down my leg, down my foot. It was gross. So then I got the epidural, and then it was so much better. She says, lay down, get some rest, and if you feel any pressure, ring your buzzer. She says, because his head's right there. So I was like, okay. So we lay down and get comfy, and not even 15 minutes later, I ring my buzzer. Well, before I rang my buzzer, I asked my boyfriend, and I was like, when did she say she was coming back? Literally almost as soon as she walked out. Because I was going to wait. And then I was like, I can't do this. And I push a button before he even replies back to me. And she comes back, and I'm like, it was like 10-15 minutes after she left my room. She comes back, she's like, oh, what can I do for you? And I'm like, there's a lot of pressure. So she checks me, and she's like, you are way ready to push, because he was like right there. So I got an epidural at like 6-ish centimeters, and within like that time frame, it was boom. So I dilated super fast once I started dilating. And then so she went and called my OB, which they couldn't get a hold of her at first. And so it took a couple of tries, and then she came in, and it was go time. It took, I want to say we started at like midnight. Midnight, I was fully dilated and ready to push. And I had him at 3:10 a.m. So it took 3 hours for me to push him out. And he decided to come out with his arm either behind or in front. I don't know. But he came out with his arm and his head together. So she had to like go and pull him out because he was getting stressed out and stuff. And kind of stuck. So she had to pull him out. So, I forgot to mention that after 3 hours to get him out, he ended up, like, my doctor, my OB, passed him off to, like, a nurse or someone, and he wasn't crying. So then she, like, grabbed him back from, like, the nurse, and she, like, patted his back, and he, like, spit out a bunch of blood, so he must have swallowed a bunch of blood, like, right before he came out. And then he started crying, and then they put him right on my chest, and then he was sassy and wouldn't stop crying, but that's okay. And then I got to cut his umbilical cord, so I got to disconnect him from myself. And that is the end of the story. So thank you guys so much for watching.